Hi, Lisa Anderson here from A Healing Place Complete Counseling Care in Neenah, Wisconsin. So today I'm going to talk about relationships and marriage and couple relationships in particular. And so one of the things I want to talk about is Dr. John and Julie Gottman, who are somewhat of the gurus of the relationship repair. So they really have done 30 years of research and have evidence-based practice of what does and does not work in couples relationship repair. And interestingly enough, they can even tell you with pretty good accuracy, which I'll talk about a little bit, of if your marriage is going to end in divorce or not, just by watching how you communicate. So let's talk a little bit about who Dr. John Gottman is first. In 1976, he joined somebody, a friend of his, who is Dr. Robert Levinson, and they created this research about relationships and really wanted to see how the emotional and physiological movement with a video and connecting to heart monitors and things like that to determine how do people interact or measure while they're in conflict, and so that they could really develop a practice that worked better. And so what he did is him and his friend took this research method and methodology and from the lab and met with therapists in the community to talk about how to put this now into practice into some type of therapy. And that's really how him and his wife, Julie Gottman, met, because she's a licensed practicing therapist and she puts these into play in her therapy. And they teach this to many professionals. I am not a certified therapist in the Gottman principles. I'm working on being trained on that. So I'm not doing a training on that or anything because I don't have the certification or licensure to do so. But I am going to talk about some of their key points as we're discussing relationship. I'm going to be talking about relationship through the end of May here all the way through June, because June tends to be a very high marriage month. And so just really trying to help people understand the ways to help their relationship do better. So just some statistics first before we get going, because if you don't understand how accurate this process can be with Dr. John Gottman, you're not going to understand why I'm going to talk about some of these other things. So there's this things called the four horsemen. The four horsemen are types of communication styles that sabotage relationships. So it's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And if you're doing any of those four things in your relationship, you are setting your relationship up to fail. In fact, what they have shown is if these consistently show up in communication, 5.6 years after the wedding, the couple will be divorced. That will destroy the relationship within 5.6 years. The interesting thing also is that the average years that persons come in for help is 6 years. So people are struggling for 6 years in a relationship before they come into help. And unfortunately, some of these people wait until 16.2 years before they even really come in, and because of emotional withdrawal and a lot of issues around fighting. And by then, really, the relationship can be DOA, dead on arrival. You know, there's this analogy that you're trying to pump life back into a relationship, and if at least if it has a weak pulse, you can still get that relationship going. But if that relationship is dead on arrival, there is no respect for your partner, that relationship is not going to be able to bounce back. Research shows again and again and again that this is not a relationship that's going to work. And then certain domestic violence relationships, not all surprisingly, but certain domestic violent relationships will not be able to recover. And I'll talk about that in the next few weeks. So I'll be doing series of these. So there's different things that we'll be talking about. Another thing that's really interesting is that half of marriages end in divorce, which I don't think statistically is a big surprise. That statistic has been out there for a while. But what John and Julie Gottman says is that's preventable. If people would have gotten in for help sooner, if they would have learned these techniques younger, or even while their marriage was starting to struggle, that they could have actually prevented a lot of the things that's happening. Now, here's how accurate his research is. He could watch a couple for an extended amount of time and with a 90% accuracy tell you if that couple was going to stay married or not in the love lab, just because of the way they communicated and how they would start communication. If the four horsemen were there, if there was respect and commitment in that relationship, he could tell very quickly if that relationship was going to make it or not. So this evidence-based therapy that they have developed is very good in that it can really define, is your relationship even worth saving at this point anymore? The other thing is that I thought was very interesting is that what they found out was that there's really nothing to measure compatibility. You know how there's all these like Match.com and all these different places that have all these compatibility measurements? It really doesn't exist. There's no way to do that. The only thing that's been consistent through all the different research is that if a female gets married before age 20, that there is a much higher likelihood of divorce for that couple, which is interesting. That's true of myself. I got married very young. I got my first marriage was actually when I was 17. Long story, but I was divorced by age 21. So that was true for me. Now, in my second marriage, I waited till I was 25 to get married, and we've been together and still are together. We've been together, it'll be 29 years this New Year's Eve, and been married 27 years. So clearly, that some of that difference was the age. The other interesting thing about this is that when we're talking about women and men, 80% of the time, women bring up issues that are helpful or beneficial to the in the heterosexual relationship, and so you're seeing that women are consistently the ones bringing up the issues, which I don't know is the biggest surprise to anybody in a relationship. Women tend to be the ones who are the emotional barometer of that relationship, so you tend to see that. So those are just some of the statistics that are in the research, and there's many more. And if you're really interested in that research, I would really recommend you go to the Gottman Institute.com, and he's got tons and tons of stuff on his research. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do about how you can make your relationship work. So they have this thing called the sound relationship house. And so you want to think of like a house like with walls and a roof. And they talk about these supportive walls or these weight-bearing walls, which are trust on one side and commitment on the other. You need to have those two things to have a strong support of that wall. If you're losing trust or commitment, you're going to have trouble to have that relationship. And trust can be broken through affairs, through abuse, through a cheat or lying about finances. There's lots of different ways that trust can be broken. And then again, that commitment. If you have a couple who's not willing to commit to work on the relationship, that are respectful of the relationship, the chances that you're going to be able to repair the relationship is getting more and more difficult. So the foundation of this is you're going to build these love maps. So this is going to get to know the other person's world. You're going to understand the other person's world. So maintaining awareness of that person. So let's say, for an example, if you asked me what's one of my husband's favorite things to do, I would tell you riding a motorcycle or looking at Jeeps. He loves those two things. Those are some of the things that are very important to him in his world. If someone was to ask me if you were to ask my husband what's important to me, I would hope he'd be able to answer things that are important to me. So you really want to be aware of that. So there's building these love maps. As you move up, that would be your foundation. As you move up into like the next floor of this, it's sharing a fondness and an admiration of each other. You know that you're really trying to say, hey, I like this person. This person's a friend of mine. I appreciate them. There's things that drive me a little crazy about them from time to time, but all in all, this is a person I truly value and I have admiration for. So you want to make sure that you're really trying to show that admiration towards people. So you when you're doing that, it's that here's my friend and I take care of my friend, which leads you to the next level, which is turning towards instead of away. So Dr. Gottman has this, if you're turning towards or turning towards bids of love, that the more you do that, the stronger your relationship is, and the more you turn away, the more unhealthy your relationship is. So when you're turning towards somebody, you're doing things for them. You're recognizing, like let's say you're talking about a boat, or you're talking about going on a vacation, and the other person's listening and responding, going, yeah, I think that'd be really great. I think that would be interesting. Turning away would be like, you're such an idiot. Why would we do that? So that would be the turning away versus turning towards. Then we have the positive perspective. And this is again about maintaining good, strong relationship. When me and my girlfriends are talking and I'm laughing and we're doing, I'm like, that's a really good idea. I like that idea. I'm supportive of them. Where in relationships that are romantic, this seems to tend to fall away and you start not being positive. So the positive perspective is, I really like that idea, or, hey, you're doing a really great job. I'm so proud of you. And it's really trying to continue to support that person. And then it's about how do you manage conflict. So, part of this is accepting your partner's influence, which means sometimes you're wrong and your partner might be right, or maybe your partner's wrong and you're right, but you let it go. So it's really about, what, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear what you have to say. I'm going to think about what you say might matter. And then also dialoguing about problems. Probably most interesting statistic in the Gottman theory is this, that 69% of problems in a marriage will be a perpetual problem. He said that they were people that they were arguing in the first year of marriage were still arguing about that same thing in the 30 years of marriage. So they jokingly said, make sure you pick your partner well, because you'll be dealing with those problems your whole life. And so that's really true, that there's these perpetual problems, but you talk about those problems. You discuss how can we maintain some compromise about those problems. In my own life, My husband has ADD. So this means that he's somewhat unorganized. He can lose focus. At times he's forgetful. And so this can, for me, who is a little bit more type A, very organized, very like gets things done immediately, wants to move on to the next project. This can be somewhere that he and I tend to have conflict. And we've talked about that. We've learned to compromise. I've learned to be patient with him, and he's learned to try and meet me at where I'm at, where I need some things done quicker. And because of that, we don't argue about that as much. Not that it can't come up in conflict for us, but not as much. And then you want to also talk about how do you practice your own self soothing. So, what they say is they put oximeters, which are little finger pulse meters, on the fingers of their clients. And if the heartbeats get up over 100 beats per minute, that shows that their brain is being flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, and they're no longer thinking, and that they're more reacting and getting more into a defensive pose. So you got to learn how to self-soothe. So learning how to do deep breathing, meditation, relaxing that muscle, and all of those things that should be being taught in the therapy, so that when you are in those moments of heated feelings or feeling flooded, you know how to relax yourself. And it's not your partner's job to get you under control. It's your job to get yourself under control. And then the last thing, a couple of things, is making life dreams come true. So let's say my husband and I talk about this all the time. We really want to either buy an RV and travel when we're retired, or we talk about buying a condo now in Florida and living down there half the year and here. So this is something we're both very interested in and we both really want. But let's say he decided that no, what he really has decided is that he wants to open a restaurant at 65, and I want to travel. Could we find a compromise in that? Could he open up a restaurant that he's around for 6 months of the year, and then gets a really good manager that manages it the whole year, so that he's able to be involved with it, and then we can travel the other half of the year? So it's how do we make those compromises, and then creating that shared meaning. So creating shared meaning is really about how do we build a sense of purpose of what is our mission, what is our legacy. If you ask friends of ours about the Andersons, what they're going to say is our mission and legacy is kindness, helpfulness, fun, a couple that's interesting to be around. We tend to really want to be kind to people. We were just having this conversation last night walking out of Target. We both had our masks on, for social distancing and protecting. And I know there's some people who just do not want to wear masks, and that's fine. But that doesn't fit with the mission of the Andersons, because we wear masks to help protect others. And that's really our goal in life, is we really try to help and protect others. And so if that means I have to wear a mask and be uncomfortable, then so be it. But that is what we will do. And so that is the Sound Relationship House. And so throughout the next series, I'm going to be talking about how the four horsemen really can break down that house. I'm going to be talking about affairs. I'm going to be talking about domestic abuse. I'm going to be talking about how to do soft startups or harsh startups. So I'll be giving tips and different things throughout the next month. So this was a little bit longer video than typical, and I apologize for that, but there's a lot of groundwork to lay down with the Gottman theory. Again, if you're really interested in what the research, it's gottmaninstitute.com. Tons and tons of research on there. He also has a really good book called The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. I would recommend reading that too if you're interested in really how to help your relationship. Everyone have a great week. And don't forget that starting in June on Thursdays, we're going to start going live and you can ask questions. I was going to do an hour, but I've changed it to a half hour just because I thought, just let's see how it goes first and then we'll go from there. But on Facebook, it will be live. It's going to start at 9 a.m. So it's from 9 a.m. to 9:30, and answering any question that you throw at me. And if I can't get you the answer in that moment, I will get you the answer down the road. So hope you have a great week. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.